The K-Jazz Show, Sundays on Kofifi FM 97.2.
Kofifi FM, you are spending time in the company of the K-Jazz Show, Sundays 10 to 1 o'clock. As always, we bring you closer to some of the conversations with your favorite musicians and, of course, around the jazz space. And as the Joy of Jazz Festival approaches, one of the names stand out. Of course, I'm talking about Siya Makuzeni, who is a dynamic force in South African jazz. She's a trombonist, vocalist, composer, and bandleader whose musical journey, spans continents and genres. From collaborating with legends such as Themba, Mkhize, and Branford, Marsalis, Siya's artistry is indeed boundless. And this year, she brings an exciting big band arrangement to the festival, promising a performance filled with bold sounds and deep emotion. And of course, she joins us this morning ahead of the festival. As we get to chat about everything else in between, Kofifi FM, please help me welcome to the K-Jazz Show, Siya Makuzeni. Hello, welcome.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for having me.
It is always a pleasure to have you, man. And of course, we're talking about this musical journey that has been extraordinary. But let's go back. See, Yaman, this is the very first time you and I get together after many attempts together and, of course, then some. But what drew you to jazz, particularly the trombone?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I'm starting to believe this is like my favorite question in interviews. Because explaining it in terms of, maybe allowing the universe to kind of really be, the front and runner of situations. I always answer by saying that the trombone chose me. And I think I really do believe it to this day, How I came about the music and the instrument and the way things sort of fell into place was through a program in high school. I was already a music student, but I was more focused on Baroque and classical music. I was busy with the recorder. And it was really at the insistence of my teacher, where she kind of, I guess, saw the talent. And she felt it was necessary that maybe I tried to look at different avenues. The one thing she explained to me was, you can't imagine trying to have a career as a concertist like recorder player, because there's so much competition to even start off, and people who have to be really completely so brilliant, at the craft. But it's also a whole lot of different factors that would have to go into that to make it even viable to be able to have a career. And so she was the one who suggested to me that I audition for my then school, my high school's big band program, which happened every Friday for the main big band. And then eventually our teacher actually managed to have a smaller ensemble, which would be more focused on improvisation, that I managed to join about 2 years later after I joined the big band. And everything happened at my audition. I went in having prepared a piece with an instrument I was not comfortable with, and I landed up having to really test every single instrument until we got to the trombone. So, an intensive period of time in terms of, and I really appreciate Alan Webster for all of his patience, I would say, even from that day, and allowing me to just, and taking a chance really to be like, okay, what can happen, and I guess I never looked back, once we got to the trombone, which was the last instrument in the room, I blew a B flat and he was like, okay, that one, take it home, And what I knew was that I had 2 weeks to basically learn everything, how the instrument works, how it sounds, the positions and all of that, and get myself acquainted with it. And the next thing I was in the big band, and yeah, that's my story.
And you've worked, throughout the journey, you've worked with some really incredible jazz giants. I want to know, maybe we all want to know, what has been some of the standout moments, I think, in those collaborations? Because we know a lot of them, but what has been your favorite part of it all?
And I mean, and especially with it every single year, there's more and more gigs as they happen. I think there's truly some gems that I have from my upbringing, what I would, consider my formidable years. And one that stands out is a show that we collaborated on with Zimnawana and the East Cape Big Band. That was being run, if I'm not mistaken, around 1998, 1999. But we had a show with him where it was a plethora of jazz, practitioners from the Eastern Cape who were mostly in the scene, and they're working in the industry, and some were educators. So it's already in that situation. I felt that it was quite a big feat that now I'm in the same vicinity as Buddy Wells and like Marcus Wyatt, Andile Yenana is there, and because I guess maybe I was always one of those students who was very, I wasn't scared. I didn't really kind of see a problem with trying to be like, throw myself in the deep end, And if I'm not mistaken, that was the same show where Zimnawana was involved in where there was, I think, a composition of mine from way back then. I must have written it around 16 or 17 years old. And that was very memorable. It kind of doesn't leave my mind because there were so many things that happened in that moment, right? Yeah. The show itself was really amazing, but yeah, I really, when you look at what I considered like jazz and being in the industry as the school of life, we had a moment after intermission on that particular show, where the crowd came back in and they were extremely rowdy, and really got to the point of, actually really getting in the way of the music. So Brazim, being ever so patient, tried his level best, and then at some point he had to stop the show. And so it was just incredible chaos. You can imagine that the band has stopped, and then like they're still making a noise, but now they're booing, and he's trying to give them a heart-to-heart to be like, listen, this is not, oh man, it was just so intense. But I think that was, like, I'm 17 at that point, and we're like, I'm a child, really, and this is the reality of some of the things that happen, and the show must go on. And so that was a very interesting highlight. And there's one show that I remember that I did with Winston Mangungu, as well as, actually, it was really incredible. Victor Ntoni was there, Pat Machikiza, and I had, I think on the horn stand, I was performing with Sydney Nisi as well as Sydney Mavundla, early 2000s. But then there's also been really amazing ones, like when I got to collaborate with Branford. It's actually, it went from a situation of meeting people, and because we're at the same festival, now we're on the same stage. I mean, I just think he's really generous and beautiful as a human being for doing that, because that's something that he does in most of his shows. And the most recent one was when I performed. This was 2022, I believe, with Regina Carter, and there was Galen McKinney, Ed Sareth, as well as Wheeler Williams and Chantal Peterson was there. I mean, this was a really, really incredible collaboration that was put together. Yeah.
Wow, wow, yeah, Maya. Wow, wow, yeah, wow, wow, yeah, wow, wow, yeah, wow, wow, yeah, wow, wow, yeah. Wow, wow, yeah, wow, wow, yeah, wow, wow, yeah, Themba, wow, wow, yeah.
You took the words right out of my mouth, because my next thing, Siya, was, how have those connections, influenced your artistry then,
I think obviously it's quite centered around, I would say, composition. A lot of these interactions help one to hone your skill, but also really become a bit more in depth in terms of expressing what your own voice, your unique voice is. I think I learned I really, really take all of them as the massive school and university of life. There's so many smaller things maybe that might be part and parcel of the production that you get to learn, and being able to also kind of traverse the world, being a performer, but also having the other skills, being a composer and being, you know, an arranger and a musical director, and learning from seeing that in other people, you know, because for instance, with His Day Is Done, which was Ed Sarat's piece, where we collaborated with Regina, that was a seriously incredible feat of a job, you know, and everybody had to make sure that they absolutely had their parts. We're dealing with a full orchestra, a choir, as well as the soloists within a 5-movement piece, you know, where everything has to come in at exactly the right time in the manner of how it was written. So I think it informs me on all those levels, but it's always incredibly, maybe very, very visible within my realm of composition and arrangement.
Kofifi FM, we are in conversation with Siya Makuzeni this Sunday, and of course we have been reflecting on some of her career moments, including her upcoming performance at this year's Joy of Jazz Festival, which takes place at the Sandton Convention Center. And of course, you and I are invited. And speaking of, you are going to be performing at the Joy of Jazz as part of a big band. Let's talk about, you know, that big band set and what is that all about? Somebody is probably listening, okay, sharp. It's jazz. Mara, what does Siya mean? Ki big band.
So this iteration is the Siya Makuzeni Big Band. I'm extremely excited to be able to have this showcase happen. This is the second time that I have the privilege. The first time that I put together the big band was in 2021, and this was part of the International Big Band Festival. And what's really amazing is being able to kind of go back to my first love, obviously, from the aspects of having played in the big band all of my high school career. But I, for years, had wanted to try and kind of maybe, you know, visualize or hear my music in a format that is of that nature. And especially because I think, you know, we have a lot of focus with regards to big band music in terms of institutions, but I don't think that there's a lot of opportunity for people to actually really put them together and have them, you know, showcased regularly. And that would, I mean, I'm just even talking with regard to what we can consider the real book of South Africa, you know, all of the great compositions that we've had for years that make up the like very vast, you know, plethora of music that we have. And so I wanted to maybe put a spin on it by saying, but we're looking at the material that is in out of this world, but we're also looking at material that's perhaps not released. We're looking at material that maybe is about South African, you know, the history of South African jazz, looking at songs that we contribute. And so I'm hoping to have all of those elements in the show. But it's definitely focusing a lot on taking, it's a different take on Siya Makuzeni music, so people will be able to hear their favorites, but it's in a big band format, and then they also will have an opportunity to hear some new music.
You know, you and I were saying off air when we initially got together for this conversation that I was even saying to you that, you know, you've taken us with out of this world, by the way. You've taken us and placed us in a place where we can never come back from out of this world. I don't know how you do that. How you did that, but it has been such an interesting journey that we've traveled. And of course, you know, you've also spent some time abroad, you know, collaborating with some really great names. And through these collaborations, the many of them, you know, your jazz is deeply personal, you know. And if we had to talk about that Siya Makuzeni sound and the themes that keep you returning to that work, what are those? Do we have something called the Siya Makuzeni sound? Does that exist?
Oh, I believe I've been trying to. There's nothing I kind of cannot stand worse than being put in boxes. I mean, I think it's just. And so I've tried to have a term for it, which, in my eyes, it makes sense if I call it crossover jazz. right? If I'm in the jazz realm, then that's what it's going to be. With my rock band, it's the same concept, you know. I have so many different genres that I'm melding and blending there that it might as well be crossover rock music. And so my sound crossover. I like the fact that there's always space to be able to mesh different influences together. And I mean, I guess, you know, for the longest time, I think if I'm looking at how I'm even inspired to put songs together, is that I'm maybe perhaps quite observant on life itself, you know, and patterns and things that happen to us. But I strongly believe in self-affirmation. And so my music is very much centered around that. And even in terms of, you know, topics and ideas of love, it's more a general sense. It's not necessarily going to be seen in a situation where it has to be a dynamic between two people. I'm speaking about overall how we as a society and a community, you know, the global world, can love each other a bit more. But yeah, take stock of the things that are really, really beautiful and that build us, that heal us, and put that back into the music.
Conversation this Sunday. Of course, I'm spending time with Siya Makuzeni, and she is on the K-Jazz show, of course, for this edition of Our Africa. And she's also, you know, a Standard Bank Young Artist for Jazz. And that's a conversation that I've always wanted to have with you, you know, Siya, and the recognition, you know, and how that has impacted your career, you know.
Yeah. I think I'm extremely grateful, you know, to be able to be in the vicinity of and get the award, but in the vicinity of those who have also received the Standard Bank Young Artist Award for Jazz. I think with regards to kind of how I decided to approach it was that it felt like a really big opportunity for me to be able to stamp my ground or stamp my name in and introduce Siya's unique voice, Siya's solo, you know, voice in a sea of different collaborations that I was doing at that time. And so that was where we can say that like my solo career blossomed, but through understanding that I had, you know, an opportunity to utilize the award in such a way, it also became like a very big learning curve. And allowing me to get into the solo world kind of really helped to step up on many different skills around what then I would be doing. And as of now, to look at that trajectory and understand that I have a sextet for jazz, a big band, I have a rock band, now I can make these different iterations at will, and through the mercy, obviously, of having really amazing people that you can count on. Yeah. But yeah, it catapulted a lot of different roles for me, and I think it really helped to flesh out and create like the situation of who Siya Makuzeni is, the overall musician that I am today.
I'm thinking about, as you are saying that, I'm thinking about how, so many of the female voices in jazz who tune into the K Jazz show every week and every other week and every other day, every Sunday anyway. What would you say, having this experience as Siya Makuzeni and the road that you traveled, and some have not traveled because that is also a road less traveled as a, musician, vocalist, you are an instrumentalist, which is also looked at like, hey, Lorna, hey, she's powerhousing, so she's always, at the front or pioneering. What would you say, to those female musicians who are saying to themselves right now, hey, I want to be like Siya, but where do I begin?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a very interesting question, and especially because we are in South Africa. And by that, what I definitely noticed is that, not all of us have the same trajectory. Our, backgrounds are extremely different. And so some people may have started music way earlier, and some people are only maybe kind of grasping it now. But I think if anything, just getting the foundations of music, so your music theory and your ear training and the instrument, obviously, that we'll be focusing on is like paramount, try and get a lecturer and somebody who's, going to be a practical guide for you as much as you can. But also there's so much that's available thanks to technology in this day and age that courses, digital courses, can definitely help to bridge that gap. I'm not sure. Maybe it is because of the way that it happened for some of us. In my journey, what I found is, again, you need to really rely on the school of life. So that entails people going to jam sessions, putting themselves in the situation, in the rooms where that music is happening, and actually like taking your instrument out and trying it out. Play. There is no room really to perhaps doubt ourselves. I think everybody is in a position that they could definitely put their name out there if they wanted to.
Incredible sentiments here on the KJS show. Of course, we're spending time. This is our Africa, and we're spending time with Siya Makuzeni, and it's all about the Joy of Jazz Festival, which is coming up a little bit in a few months. But we're kicking off the conversations now so that you are able, to just book your seat and be able to be part of the conversation. And the Sunday, we're talking to Siya Makuzeni, as mentioned. Of course, the incredible project, Siya, out of this world. We mentioned this earlier. I'm going to go back one more time. Please allow me. Has kept your music in our ears and your name on our lips. What's the next best thing since Out of This World?
The pressure.
Non-existent from me, though.
Because, absolutely. And I think it's a valid question as well. I would definitely like to get into studio, but I've also learned to not jump the gun. I think it's best to be able to let people know and announce when there's actually a record that is available. However, that doesn't mean that I'm not, cooking in the engine room. Studio sometimes really takes a while, but I am thinking of really perhaps introducing the music that I know that I've been composing, and I've been in live situations at least. There are a number of fans who would probably know this music because they've been seeing me perform it. But I think it's time that it gets put into, yes, a studio format. So I'm still working on that.
Well, we look forward to that. And of course, Kofifi FM, the Joy of Jazz Festival takes place this coming September, and Siya is performing on the prestigious Dinaledi stage, which has been home, to some really big names. Of course, this is not your first performance at the festival, Siya. No pressure again. But because of the showcase, what can we expect on that stage? Song list vibes now.
If anything, it's going to be big and loud, obviously, with the 17 piece. I'm looking forward to, performing with beautiful colleagues, such as Bandleader on piano. I have Lebo Pangwa on the trombone, along with Stephen Sokuyega. So I'm excited to actually have collaborations that are cross-regional as well, and have some people visiting from Cape Town. So that's and then there's Georgia. Georgia Jones is on baritone saxophone. I have Mohammed Dalji on tenor sax. I have Robin Fassi on trumpet. So I think it's going to be very interesting because I feel like I've chosen a choice list of like my favorites, basically. But we definitely will be covering some of the favorites of the tracks that people know. And there's also going to be a whole lot of new music, and everything is going to be in big band format. So, people must buy their tickets. I look forward to it.
And we can't wait to see it. Of course, we look forward to seeing you on that wonderful stage. And of course, thank you, for being an incredible voice, Siya, for an entire generation. And we are because you did. And we anticipate, the next amazing from you. And of course, to those who are listening and want to be part of, who want to be the next Siya Makuzeni, what nuggets? I know you did share a little bit earlier, but how do we finish them off? What nuggets of wisdom would you like to share as Siya Makuzeni, the Siya Makuzeni?
I believe that music is a really, really quite incredible in alchemizing life situations, like being able to really turn it around. I believe music is healing, cathartic. I believe that it's a journey that is quite succinct with regards to the fact that I should be doing it, and I really hope that I am able to continue being in the space of healing for a lot of people, which is general feedback that I receive a lot. And I want for everybody to know how much I appreciate the love. Please don't stop. And if anything, I just hope to be able to bring more and more music.
Of course, Kofifi FM, you and I are 185 days and counting, away from the Joy of Jazz Festival. And the tickets are already live and available via Ticketmaster. So do head to their page and book yourself a seat to Johannesburg's favorite festival. And you can catch Siya Makuzeni alongside many other incredible artists on the lineup at this year's edition. Siya Makuzeni, thank you so much for joining us this Sunday.
Thank you for having me.
She is a trombonist, vocalist, composer, and bandleader. Her name is Siya Makuzeni. And of course, she was on the K-Jazz Show.